Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us here on KAFTAN Joy Asonye Live, where today we'll be focusing the program on attaining increased women representation in the new administration. Although women have been described as dynamic and often rev up the engine of political process during electioneering and mobilization at different stages of political transition, women representation continue to dwindle, especially in Nigeria. The 10th Assembly, for instance, is thus far the lowest since 2003 and in the world. So how can we attain increased women representation in the new administration? Well, we'll be discussing all of this with Edith Bargoma. She has become a regular here on Joy Asonye Live. She's a business development and operations specialist with KAFTAN Services Limited. She's a women advocate. So good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. But at this moment, we'll just go for a short break and return to discuss more. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, talking about women, I mean, Edith, the last time you were here, we talked about women and the new administration. And for some of us who have seen some of the lists, the supposed list, they are all over the social media, the list of appointments that will come up. We're not sure of anyone just yet. A lot of people are listening and watching with their breaths, holding their breath, watching what's going on. But even in this list that has not been confirmed, you can see that women are not visible in this list out there. And we have just 17 women emerging in this 10th Assembly, with 3 in the red chambers. Are you concerned that if nothing is done, we would see an administration with less women in it? We're already talking about the 10th Assembly having such a low number of women. Are you very concerned about that?
Not necessarily, because, you know, we thrive on rumors a lot. This supposed list that's out there has not been confirmed. No one from the incoming government is acknowledging or owning that list.
Or denying
or denying. It's just mere speculation and rumors. And it's based on, you know, people who have worked with the incoming president-elect, right? So a lot of these are guesses. So I would say let's not rely so much on that. Let's not raise our blood pressure based on those rumors and what we are seeing going around on social media, particularly WhatsApp. We all belong to these groups that we get all types of stuff that almost makes you feel like your head is spinning. I saw a press release by the incoming president saying that one key thing that he said was that women will be prominent in his administration. Right. So I hope that means he will commit intentionally. Yes, as we said last time, right? Intentionally seek out qualified women to be a part of his cabinet and overall administration.
Well, that is giving me some sort of hope. However, we have also seen president-elects such as the recent president-elect Asonye. We've seen governor-elect, and we've seen candidates who make promises like this. But this is very tough. Picking or choosing those in your cabinet, especially in Nigeria, is a very dynamic process, where you would first of all consider where this person is coming from to give the semblance of federal character. You now consider his religious leaning, so that it doesn't seem like you are alienating another for one. You have to consider so much, and now we are including the female perspective into it, and we know how it often goes. shows women are not known to be as pushy as men, even though they can be if they want to. However, what do you think the women should do? Should we sit back? I mean, women who feel qualified, who probably have worked really hard for him to emerge, do you think they should do more in getting visibility? Because as we speak now, engagements are going on, consultations are going on, negotiations are going on. Are women also in all of this, or we are just hoping that he has proclaimed it, we will hold him to it, and if it doesn't happen again, oh well.
Like you said, consultations are ongoing, lobbying is ongoing, negotiations are ongoing. I'm not an insider, so I don't know what is happening on the inside. I will again go back to the press release where he specifically said that he will, and this is a press release that has been released by his, his media team. So we're going to go with what is endorsed, what is a true copy, if I may say, if I may use that term. He said that he will be picking people based on competence.
Right.
Okay. So I would like us to begin with trust. He's saying all the good things, right? I would like us to begin with trust that he will, in fact, do what he says. He said that he's not going to go based on religion or ethnicity, so on and so forth. He's saying all the good things, right? So I think that the people who are in the corridors of power, who have access to him and his, nuclear team, should bring in, constantly, especially the women who are there, should constantly be bombarding him with, okay, you said that women are going to be prominent. We're holding your feet to the fire for you to make sure that you bring in qualified women, regardless of ethnicity or religion or any other isms that currently exist
in Nigeria.
Yeah. The
last time you were here, we were talking about the only female candidate who was the Adamawa State candidate, Aishatu Dahiru, Binani as she's commonly known. And we've seen what transpired, and it reflects to what women face in vying for political positions. We saw the court cases that came before she emerged, flag bearer. We saw all of that. Now, are you confident that we would have a governor, be it just one, in Nigeria at the end of the court or the rescheduled polls and all that? Do you think her mandate will be, or rather she would come up a winner of that?
I don't know, and I don't want to speculate, because you have to realize there are forces that are fighting, like with guns, if I can use that term, to ensure that a woman does not get this position. As you just mentioned, she had to fight to be the flag bearer. It was taken away from her during the primaries. She had to go to court to fight to get it. And now in the election, she's now fighting to actually take her position as governor. As a matter of fact, I actually posted on my Facebook and my Instagram congratulating her as, the governor-elect, because it was initially said that she won.
I saw the numbers as you were
and I was so excited, and I actually posted on my Facebook only to, hear that it was inconclusive, and it was a surprise, but not a surprise at the same time, because if you remember, this is the same thing that happened with Mama Taraba, God rest her soul, right? This is the same thing that happened, and Buhari ended up appeasing her with an appointment, right? And it looks like this is the direction we're going. Again, we're now repeating the same thing again, meaning that there are instances where we have not learned from the previous experience. But of course, I feel like the difference now is we're paying attention more. We're now more involved more activated, from the youth to the women to people who didn't used to pay attention to politics and what's going on. A lot more people are engaged. And so this would be the time for us to take advantage of that engagement, of the participation, in order to now move the needle from where it's at to further upward toward achieving our goal, in getting women into higher positions in politics.
In your response, you mentioned forces, and you didn't elaborate. And you're the co-convener of the Nigerian Young Women's Political Forum. I would like you to know what challenges or forces this females who want to vie for public offices often face.
Well, as we spoke in the last broadcast we did, you're talking about, everything from economic forces to, women are not supposed to be seen, they're not supposed to be heard, they're only supposed to be seen. Women are supposed to be at home raising the children, they're not supposed to be out, being political leaders or in, being CEOs or anything like that. And then unfortunately you have women who are some of the most staunch critics of women who want to run for public office, but the big thing, those are the two big things: lack of support from other women and the financial backing to be able to, run for a political position. Because if you don't have that, unfortunately, and it's not a Nigeria thing only, unfortunately, money is what runs political campaigns and elections.
Right.
It's money. It doesn't matter which country you go to. And if you pay attention, or if you look at the statistics, anywhere where there are women running, that is one of the major issues that they have. They don't have enough money the way that their male counterparts have. For them to run their campaign and put themselves out there in the forefront, outside of all the other obstacles that stand in their way.
I mean, it's interesting that you said that money and the fact that sometimes they do not get that support from women. Support and money is a major factor. But some would say Nigerian is still very ultra conservative in terms of the cultural ideologies that we grew up with, and having women. We also have heard about women's struggle even in the corporate world, attaining positions. So would you say that these cultural beliefs also affect a woman emerging in political positions? I remember speaking to somebody from Adamawa State who said, Dahiru, she's a wonderful woman. Binani, she's a wonderful woman, but Adamawa would not give it to her. Why? Because she's a woman. She's wonderful. She has the credentials. She's motherly. All the qualities necessary for somebody in leadership. One who would look at the development, the true development of the people. But yet, that barrier, because they are just being conservative. Oh no, we don't think it's time for a woman. A woman should never have to lead men. So those kind of nuances, when you hear that, how does it make you feel?
Well, obviously it doesn't make me feel good, right? Like any other woman who wants to have the opportunity to stand in that spot. It doesn't make you feel good. But I commend all the women who do it anyway, because I cannot even begin to imagine what they go through, taking that mantle and saying, I will be the first.
Right.
I will stand and be burned and be, killed and be stoned. Every obstacle put in my way. I mean, that is a huge sacrifice. And we have a lot of women who are doing that, who have done that. I want to use the example of Natasha Akpoti in
Kogi State.
I mean, my goodness, right in our faces, this woman has faced every obstacle imaginable. In her first run against the sitting governor, her office was burned. gunmen came and shot
exactly.
up her office and people just to keep her from running. In this second go round where she's running for senator, literally they went and dug up the road in order to keep election personnel from getting there to run elections in her district, just to keep her from being elected, you know. So you imagine that level, to that extent, that women are, you know, being fought, you know, to not have a seat at the table. I'm not saying that we should get that brutal also, but we understand what the game is. We understand to what extent some people are willing to go to keep women from attaining political positions. Once we understand that, then we will know what we need to do. Then we can better strategize in order to be able to get to where we need to get to and prepare those women who are ready and willing to take that mantle. But first, we have to acknowledge the truth. We have to acknowledge all that is going on, and we have to be ready to stand up, you know, and support each other in every aspect, in every type of way. So until we do that, we're going to continue to face the same obstacles. History will continue to repeat itself, you know, and we're not learning from it. So in order for things to start to change, we have to actually do a historical analysis. What has happened previously? How did it happen? And then learn from that in order to take the next step and to make a difference, even if it's to move the needle an inch.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned economic challenges that women often face, which holds them back. And I had a conversation with somebody some time ago who said that women who have the means to compete for political positions have left politics for the corporate world, while the women who are in politics at the moment do not have the means and often the degrees and what it would take, the experience and basically what it would take to vie for a political position without the much support like their male counterparts. Do you agree?
Well, even when you say women who have the means, it's not your, up to a certain extent anyway, it's not your money that you use to run for political office, even though, yes, we have people who use their own money to run for political office. People give towards political runs because they believe in that person's ability to accomplish or to deliver the mandate of the people. So support should come from the people, because think about it this way: if you're the one, in my opinion anyway, if you're the one that is giving your own money to run for the campaign, to run for a political office, then you end up not listening to what the people are saying, because then you end up saying, well, I did it, I put myself there, I used my money, right? So for me to say, oh, women who have means, what exactly does that mean, right? And then not every woman who is a CEO or a COO or anywhere in the C-suite is interested in running for political office. Everyone is different with their different talents and their different interests. Now, if we can get those C-suite women to support the women who are running for political offices, that would be awesome. Because, they have great following. They have, people who are looking up to them, who are following them. So if we can actually engage those types of women at that level to get them to support women who are running for politics, we might be able to make inroads, in getting a woman into a higher political position.
I'm happy you said that. I mean, the men have the godfathers. Why are we not having godmothers or mentors, as they like to coin it to sound good? Why are we not having more godmothers? Is it that they don't see it, they're not interested enough? They just focus, like you said, in the corporate world. And I mentioned, like earlier, the means, because you talked about the support, and a lot of young women who go into political positions tell you they hardly get support. It's like people already have set them up to fail, so they don't get the support, financial support, the kind of contributions you would expect from people who would, with lip service, tell them, okay, I think you can run, but when it comes to getting that support, they don't get it. So why are we not having more godmothers? Is it they don't know they can be helpful to these young women or women in general who would like to vie?
Coming from the Nigerian context, remember previously we delved into the whole culture and tradition, right? Essentially, when you talk about mentors or godfathers or godmothers, you're talking about people who are older, right? So when you talk about people who are older, you're talking about people who are deeply ingrained in the culture and tradition and whatever religion that they practice. So they see and interpret gender roles, very separately, right? So I think from the Nigerian context, that does play a role, right? Where the male gender is supposed to be the leader, he's supposed to be, the head, so on and so forth. So therefore, automatically, he is the one that should be running for political office and even gets support from, women that have influence in some kind of way, shape, or form. I think that it's going to take a lot more than a woman getting up and saying, I'm going to run for office. It's going to take years of training, of preparation, of understanding the field, the arena, of politics. Literally, it would take probably creating some kind of a school of politics, not just like political science where you can go to college and get a political science degree, like literally, especially in the Nigerian context, some kind of, a course or something, to talk about and to teach, especially women on, running for political office. And I think that the women who have already had that experience, it will be great if we can engage them to come back and be those teachers and say, this is what I have experienced, this is what it takes, this is what we need to do in order to prepare for the next election and the next election, so on and so forth. But it's going to take a lot of work, groundwork. It's going to take a lot of groundwork. And what I've noticed, and I could be wrong, what I've noticed is that it's not until the time of, campaigning that we see some of these women. Prior to that, we don't know them.
That's true.
We don't know them. So how do you now come to support someone that you've not known or have not heard about, before she is running for a bigger office? I mean, that's not the case for a lot of the women, but it's usually at that time that they become more of a public figure. So if we can actually create some kind of a network of women who are interested in political office, network with them, weave that connection, and start creating that foundation and build it up towards the next election, I think we would do a much better job than previously.
Has your engagement with those who have attained political positions, the few that we have in Nigeria, have your engagement shown that willingness to pull younger ones through, or women who would like to learn? You talked about the school of politics. It's quite interesting. In fact, it's something one should start so that we don't see this very appalling gap. But have they shown any kind of willingness? Because we also know the support that they should get, women should get from women too, seemingly, or indeed support, really. Do you think they are really interested in it?
I don't want to speak for anyone, but directly, no. There has not been as much pull up by the women who have attained political position, pulling up other younger women, not as much as there should be. There hasn't been. And there are reasons for that, right? Some of these women were probably sponsored by their godfathers, right? So if they get sponsored by their godfathers will tell them what to do, who to engage with, or how to engage, right? So, and then of course, once you get into that field, what you say you'll do and what you think you'll do is completely different than the reality on ground, because now you're fighting every other person in that room in order to get whatever the allocation is you need to get to serve your constituency. Right? So that is why it's important to have more women in those seats, so that one woman or two women will have the support of other women to be able to pool more resources and allocations in order to be able to serve their constituency. But when you just have that one, you know, it's hard to
overwhelming
be, yes, it's hard to be heard. It will be hard to be heard. So that is why it's important to have more of us in there.
Okay, so we'll go for a short break right now, and when we return, we'll talk more about what the Nigerian Young Women's Political Forum does, and if we should start up the conversation of 35% affirmative action. Stay with us. This is Joy Asonye Live. We'll be right back. Welcome back from that. We're still discussing attaining increased women representation in the new administration, and we've been discussing this with Edith Bargoma. She's a business development and operations specialist with KAFTAN Services Limited. She's also a women advocate, and we had just taken the conversation to what the Nigerian Young Women's Political Forum does, especially to enhance and strengthen the women who want to vie for political positions. And you mentioned earlier the School of Politics is one. Is that something you are planning to take up?
You know, honestly, that just came up out of my head, like literally sitting right here. So it's something that just came up out of the blue.
But it's something you should start looking into.
Hey, look, we could possibly look into that. Nigerian Young Women's Political Forum is grassroots. I'm a grassroots person. I think we get so caught up engaging at the national level that we forget about the grassroots. We forget about the councillor positions. We forget about the local government chairman and deputy and local groups and the politics at the grassroots, because all the attention is on the national. We forget that everything has a foundation, right? Because there's such glamour that comes with the national, you know, position and, you know, the notoriety. But we forget that, you know, before there is the big picture, there are the small pieces that create the big picture. So it's extremely important to engage through there, because if you're truly there for service and to serve your constituency, you want to begin at the grassroots, right? Because you want to get to know your constituents. You want to know what their issues are, what their concerns are, what they would like to see happen in their communities. So before you can become the senator, you know, or the representative in NAS, have you been a counselor, right? Have you been a counselor? Have you gone to the different groups and organizations and spoken to them and served them in those local
capacities?
positions and
Right.
capacities, so that when you are ready to take on the bigger role, you know what you need to do, you know what the challenges are, and you'll be able to articulate it and be able to address it. And I feel like you would even be more passionate about your service because you've been at the grassroots. You know what the issues are.
Exactly.
So as you are rising up the ladder, you will hopefully keep that, you know, and continue to use that to propel yourself to serve your community. So NYWPF is grassroots. We are working with women at the grassroots, teaching them at the grassroots, working with them at the grassroots, supporting them at the grassroots. You know, we're also national.
Right.
We are heavily behind, you know, the Aisha Tubanani case, right? But we are grassroots, and I cannot overemphasize the importance of that. You know, someone is not just going to wake up and one day say, I'm running for president,
Exactly.
right? There's got to be some history. There's got to be some background. And if you're truly there for service, there has to be a showing that that has happened, because then that is what you will use to propel to the next step and the next step. So NYWPF is focused on that, building women from the grassroots, teaching them from the grassroots, working with them from the grassroots.
So what are the activities that you have, that you do?
We have done seminars.
Right.
We have called on women who are interested in political positions. We have called on them to come in so that we can sit and do seminars on what it will take to be in the political realm and to run for political office. We do one-on-one sessions with them. We learn about them and what their interests are, and we take that and we help them to build on that in order for them to be able to stand up on their 2 feet as future political participants. Yeah, among many other things.
Okay, that's interesting. Now let's move on to the issue of 35% affirmative action. With this new administration, is it a conversation we should reawaken? And above all, with the scanty composition of women in the 10th Assembly, again, do you think it would see the light of day?
You know, I am hoping that it's not only women that are interested in this 35% requirement, right? I'm actually, I don't even know what to say about it, for the simple fact that this was an agreement that was done at the United Nations.
Exactly.
And Nigeria is a signatory on that agreement. They signed saying that they are committed to achieving the 35%, which, you know, it's a whole other conversation about the different initiatives, the different directives, the different agreements that are made that Nigeria has a tendency to sign on to, saying that they will follow through, they will do this, but we have not domesticated these things. You look at every initiative coming from the United Nations, Nigeria is a signatory on almost all of them, but we have not taken it serious. We've not domesticated more than half of the things that we sign on to, including this 35%, you know, for women in political office. As a matter of fact, as we know, the bill was thrown out in the previous, I believe it was the previous assembly, right?
Exactly.
The bill
ninth
was
assembly.
the
Even
ninth
when
assembly.
the wife of the president was there, trying to convince the House to vote right for women.
Yes, and it was thrown out. So it's a conversation that should never die, and we women should never allow it to die. And the men who support women, you know, they're referred to as he for she. The men who support women should never let it die.
Apparently, we don't have enough in our legislative arm.
We don't have enough.
He for she's. If we did, we probably would not have seen that bill thrown out.
Well, it doesn't even have to be the ones inside the actual, house, right? Because you have to understand that every single politician that's on seat has people he answers to, right? And those people can influence him. So the he for she does not necessarily have to be that political person, that representative, or that senator, right? It could be the people who are the men who are behind him, whoever they may be, right? That can support the cause of women and then talk to him and say, you need to support this initiative, right? And in a lot of the cases, if your funding is coming from some of these ones that are in the background, that are speaking in your ear, if you don't do what they want you to do, then you might not get funded, or you might not get reelected, to come back in the next term. So it goes beyond the person who's sitting on the seat, right? He for she can be a small boy all the way to the oldest living man. It's about supporting women to be able to get to as high as they want to, and for them to be okay with it. It doesn't change. It doesn't mean that we're going to take over and take things.
Right. Which is often the fear. And we're talking 35%. When it comes to electioneering and mobilization, we see women really active. Come sun, come shine, come rain, we see women out there to vote and to participate, to even campaign for those the sense are the true leaders, or those the sense would lead them well. So would you say that if we saw an open voting, not the closed voting where we didn't know who was voting what, it would have shaped the course of this election, the 2023 elections? We would have known those who are opposing this bill and those who are for the bill. And moving forward, is that something you would like to suggest? Let us know who is opposing this bill, so that we know who to vote for in future.
We should know what our representatives are voting on. That is, in the US, for example, what your representative
stands for,
is voting for. Sometimes it's broadcasted on TV. The sessions are broadcasted on TV, and you know who is voting for what. I don't understand why it's a secret in Nigeria. I should know what my senator is voting for. Is that what I sent you to go do? Did I send you to vote against the bill? I want to know if my senator voted against it, so that next time I will decide if I'm going to vote him back into office, or if I'm going to find somebody else that I want to support, that I know will fight for the cause of women, or whatever my interests are. We should know what our representatives are voting for.
Right.
It's all right. We put them in that position. We voted for them, supposedly. Right? So why shouldn't we know what they voted for?
Now, do you see that happening? I mean, I just mentioned how scanty the women composition is. The women in the Red Chamber, we have just 3, and we have 15 in the House of Representatives. Should that bill come on with such a low number of women, do you think it would see the light of day again?
It will not see the light of day if we don't continue to talk about it and shout as loud as we can.
What else would you like to see? The Minister of Women Affairs gathered women. They stormed the House of Assembly. They pleaded. It was in the media. There were campaigns for so long. I remember covering that. We saw women out there begging that our representatives just give us this, so that we will see that kind of inclusivity, inclusiveness in governance. But we didn't didn't see that, what else would you have suggested could have been done? The wife of the president was there pleading, basically pleading. But what else would you have wanted us to see? And I must believe that it reflected in what we saw in the elections, despite the number of women and despite the political parties giving, some gave concessions. There was 50%, some asserted that their forms were free for women. We see the representation we are seeing. So what would you have suggested could have been done better by women to force their hands just to assent to this treaty and convention and agreement with the UN that was signed by Nigeria?
It's not that there's anything better than can be done. It's about continuing.
Right.
Never stopping. You understand? It's not let's stomp once. It's not let's shout once. You understand? Rome was not built in a day.
It wasn't.
Okay? It's about continuation. You understand? We continue to shout. We continue to stomp. We continue to speak. It should be a continuous subject matter at every turn, at every point. It should never stop. We can't do it today, shout up and down, speak, and then go back and sit and wait to see what happens. No. No, we continue to push, we continue to talk, we continue to shout. Those who are shouting, those who have the capability to shout, let them shout. Those who have the capability to write, let them write. Those who have the capability to speak, let them speak. Those who have the capability to stomp, let them stomp.
Now let's go back to cultural influences when it comes to women in politics. Do we see women who often are at top numbers in the voting gender? Do you see women voting for women, or maybe this awareness should cascade down to that level first? Let us see women rally round women first, because we have the numbers really. So do you see that happening, women rallying round women in all cadres of political stages?
Of course, I see it. So it can happen.
Why is it
can
not happening?
It's going to take time. Remember, if we're talking in the context of Nigeria, Nigeria is what? Nigeria as a country, independent country, because Nigeria was amalgamated in 1914, right? But independence came in 1960. So that's how many years?
64?
Something, right? I didn't go to school for math. So
well, 64.
So, yeah. So there's still this, we're still young as a country. The suffrage movement for women in the U.S. happened in the early 1900s, and the United States became a country in 1776, right? So in the early 1900s, you're talking about 2 centuries before women even got the right to vote, and it required heavy movement, from speaking to shouting to crying to pleading, you name it, they did it. But it took 2 centuries or almost 2 centuries before women got the right to vote. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that that's how long it should take for women in Nigeria.
I'm hoping that's not what you mean.
No, absolutely not, because that time was when the wheel was being created, right? So now the wheel has been created. We don't need to recreate it. It's been created. We just need to keep oiling it. We just need to keep oiling it so it can continue to roll on down the road. And that essentially means we need to continue the fight, because what has previously been won we have to continue to fight to maintain it. As I mentioned in the previous broadcast we did, I mean, even in the United States, Roe versus Wade was overturned.
Right.
The right of a woman to choose whether she wants to keep the pregnancy or not, regardless of whether she was raped or incest or you name it, her health. They're saying that it's against the law for her to have an abortion or to choose you know. So even in the United States, that is considered to be the most developed or civilized, you know, that has been overturned. So it's still a long way to go.
Okay. So we have come to that part of the program where we're talking solutions now. I had mentioned the grassroots. We have mentioned the cultural influences. What can we do? We still hold so tenaciously to culture where we believe the woman has a certain place in society. Very often she should be seen but not heard. And the woman cannot, like I often hear, something I find very despicable, lead men, so to speak. It doesn't matter if you are qualified or not, if you have the same credentials as the men, the integrity, the just do not put yourself in a position to lead men. How can we break that culture, especially in those rural areas where it is still held on so tenaciously, and they haven't in their defense seen role models so far, and we've not seen much of women who have broken the glass ceiling. So how do we get it to cascade for people like that who actually do hold the votes?
Actually, I want to contradict you on that side about the rural women not having the example. You would be surprised that when you go to the rural areas, you have a lot of women who are in leadership positions. You will be surprised to go to some rural areas and find that women are the ones that are the leaders, or they play a significant, relevant role of leadership in the villages and the rural communities. We have a tendency to always think that, oh, the women are in the rural areas are the most oppressed. That's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily true. So, yes, definitely, that is the grassroots, you know, but even right here in Abuja, going to the local community, that's also the grassroots. In the city, you see a lot more of that in the city because there are pressures on the man to provide, especially in the hustle and bustle of the big city, where there's a lot of competition, right? So there's more pressure on the man to be a provider. So therefore, while he is struggling to be a provider, then women are coming up and saying, you know, they want to run for office. So you get, you know, a pushback. I feel like, and in some of my experiences, you get that pushback because of that pressure, you know. So what can we do? We continue to educate. I cannot overemphasize the importance of education.
Right.
And I'm not talking about go to school and go do 1 + 1. I'm talking about on the ground, boots on the ground, continuing to teach, to train, to enlighten, you know, to organize specific programs and activities where you are teaching. And it's not just for the women.
Right.
It shouldn't be just for the women. It should be for everybody.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
to sensitize the people, to let them know, men or women, that it's okay for a woman to be in a political position or leadership position. It doesn't mean that she's going to take power away from you, you know. And like I said previously, women, we don't need to change who we are. We don't need to become a man. We don't need to act like a man, right? We can be who we are, nurturing, caring, so on and so forth. We can still be that and be the president of the country. Look at the president of Tanzania. Is there anything when you look at her, is there anything that tells you, you know, she's like this, she's walking, you know, she's a caring mother. She's a caring woman, but she's still the leader of one of the significant economies on the continent of Africa. So we don't need to change who we are. we can still be the president or the vice president or the senator
with our
or the governor with our
yeah.
nurture. As a matter of fact, that is what will make a better, in my opinion, a better leader, because you will connect with your people from the emotional, passionate side while still applying the necessary senses, logic, in order to rule or to execute your position excellently.
Okay, so we've really run out of time, but I would like to hear your last thoughts, your final thoughts on attaining increased women representation in this new administration.
I think the incoming administration should be intentional. They should definitely be intentional. There are women who are qualified and overqualified. Okay? It shouldn't, and they should look outside of their immediate or nuclear dispensation, right? They should widen their net when looking for, cabinet members or administration members. They should widen their net. There are so many women who are qualified and overqualified. Yeah. So it's up to them. I can only suggest and say, be intentional about it, and seek out those women who are qualified and give them the positions, put them in the positions, and they will definitely not disappoint you. Yeah.
So Edith Bargoma, Business Development and Operations Specialist with KAFTAN Services Limited. You seem to have something else to say?
I have one more thing to say.
Okay, please.
Tomorrow at 8 a.m., women will be gathering, tomorrow, Saturday, women will be gathering at Merit House to march to INEC.
Right.
To the gates of INEC. In protest for Aishatu Banani of Adamawa State. So we are inviting all women tomorrow at 8 a.m. meeting at Merit House to march to INEC on behalf of Aishatu Banani in Adamawa State.
Okay. I wish I had the time to ask what you hope the march would, maybe in a sentence, you could just quickly tell us what you hope the march would achieve.
Bring attention to what is happening. As I've mentioned before, we need to continue to push.
Right.
We need to continue
there's
to
foul
push.
Play?
I'm not going to speculate on that because there's a lot more going on than I know. Behind the closed doors, so I don't want to speculate on that.
This is just a march that will bring attention. This is a march
to bring attention to what is going on, so that there isn't any potential incidents of sweeping it under the carpet and just dismissing it.
Okay, Edith Bargoma, thank you so much for that, and thank you
for having me.
I hope women are listening. There's a march in 8 a.m. tomorrow. That's the 25th of March in Merit House, Maitama, Abuja, to support Aisha Dahiru, that's Aisha Binani, as she's popularly known, the Adamawa State APC candidate, the only woman who could have been the only woman governor in Nigeria. I wish you luck on that march tomorrow. But I've been discussing with Edith Bargoma, Business Development and Operations Specialist with the KAFTAN Services Limited. She's a women advocate as well. My name is Joy Asonye. This is where we close the curtain. Do have a wonderful weekend. We'll be right back on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend.